off the record, quote, "I know for a fact they take money from social media companies to do their bidding," end quote. And it turns out he was right. Google has given money to at least 22 right-leaning institutions that are also funded by the Koch network. Those institutions include the American Conservative Union, the American Enterprise Institute, the National Review Institute, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, the Heritage Foundation, and the Mercatus Center. We could go on. Google, for example, was the single largest donor to the Competitive Enterprise Institute's annual dinner a few years back. So what does all this money buy exactly? You know the answer. In September of 2018, the Competitive Enterprise Institute and 3 other groups that had been funded by Google and the Kochs sent a joint letter to the Attorney General at the time, Jeff Sessions, expressing grave concerns over DOJ's plan to look into whether search engines and social media were hurting competition and stifling speech. Here's how it works. Big tech companies silence conservatives. Conservatives, nonprofits try to prevent the government from doing anything about it. Makes sense. And then there's the Heritage Foundation, maybe the biggest and best funded think tank in Washington. Half the conservatives in this city seem to have worked there at one time or another. Almost 30 years ago, I did, for example. To this day, there are a lot of nice and very well-meaning people at Heritage. But as an organization, Heritage no longer represents the interests of conservatives, at least on the question of tech. A recent paper by Heritage entitled "Free Enterprise is the Best Remedy for Online Bias Concerns" defends the special privileges that Congress has given to left-wing Silicon Valley monopolies. And if conservatives don't like it, Heritage says, well, they can just start their own Google. The paper could have been written by tech lobbyists. In fact, it may have been written by tech lobbyists. A trade association that represents Silicon Valley called the liability exemption that Google enjoys, quote, "the most important law in tech." Well, Heritage's paper repeats that line verbatim, word for word, along with many other lines that the lobbyists wrote. It's embarrassing. But Heritage isn't embarrassed. None of the so-called conservative nonprofits in Washington are embarrassed. They make deals with people who hate you. They secretly sell out your interests. Then they beg you to tithe like it's the medieval church, like you owe them your money. That's a system that we've had for decades. And maybe that's why, no matter how much money you send, nothing gets more conservative, just the opposite. You wonder how much longer this system can continue. Well, Fox's chief meteorologist, our friend Rick Reichmuth, is here with a significant announcement for us. That's next.